Good morning everyone, how are we today? Well, it's day 2 of my jaunt in Sydney, and I'll tell you a little bit about this place. Sydney was founded a little bit over 250 years ago in 1788 when Captain Arthur Phillip sailed in limply after a 9-month voyage from the UK. Was the first on his fleet to arrive here. The rest of his fleet he was assuming to wait at least 3 weeks, but they got in the day after. He had experienced a lot of problems when coming over with 11 ships all up and about 1,400 people, many of whom were convicts. But luckily he was one of the governors who really fed his convicts well, and he looked after them, and many hadn't died. At the time, London was desperate for a solution to try and find where to put all these convicts. They tried Africa. The Americans didn't. Captain James Cook was here about 20 years prior. He had discovered a place called Botany Bay, and he said this would be a good place for a settlement. So they thought. Now you've got to understand that a lot of these people, the convicts, were petty thieves, just out here for really minor misdemeanours, and they all had 7 years, 14. So you can imagine that when the ship sailed into this bay area after 9 months at sea and they saw this foreign, strange land with just bush and trees. Now this land was just totally foreign to them, very different to the look of the UK or lush green England. There was flora and fauna they hadn't seen. The only thing they would have seen was possibly some smoke scattered around the countryside where the Aborigines had their fires. So when they arrived, they immediately started getting to work. Their whole idea was setting up farmland so they could be self-sustaining. They had enough food and supply that they brought with them for at least a couple of years. They just didn't know when the next ship was coming in to help. To cut a long story short, the stuff that they knew in the UK about farming and agriculture was irrelevant here. There was famine and Captain Arthur Phillip was desperate for a solution, so he sent a ship out to Norfolk Island, which is a bit north, to try and find better ground and more food. I'll share some more history. Today we're going to walk over the bridge and into the rocks area and then make our way to the Sydney Museum to see more of them. We're walking on the bridge and this is where we're going. Over there, across that bridge. We've stopped off on the harbour bridge, and that tall building you can see there, that's where I'm staying. What a view. We've come off the bridge and we're walking through down this little alleyway and we're going towards the rocks, which is the oldest part of Sydney. We just came from up there and we found this little restaurant bar area, and you go through it. It's fantastic. This is another thing I find fascinating. All the sandstone here have these marks on them. They look like, I guess you can see, I read somewhere that these marks were more like a brand, kind of like a brand name on a brick, show that they were, I guess, the real bricks. A mural on the wall that shows the history of the rocks. Here you can see 1788. The ships come into the rocks. Good old Arthur Phillip sets. Over time, the settlement grows to 1816. There's more trade, there's more development to the 1900s. So we're just walking along. Sydney's a great place for walking. And we're directly under the bridge and we're heading that way to Fleet. Reading so much about Australian maritime history, I'm appreciating this city a lot more now. Go for it. Here's another view. Over there ahead is Kirribilli, where I'm staying. and you know what that is. Last night I pointed out over to the rocks area. We're going to walk over there to the stores. Look what's coming. I had to get up close and personal with this big cruise liner. They're just stocking her up, getting her ready to leave again. I like this. Check out the suitcases. They're being loaded into the ship. Hope they don't go over the side. This is the man himself. He started me on the journey to learn more about maritime history. I introduce you to William Bligh. He must have been the unluckiest guy in the Royal Navy. 2 mutinies, the latest one here in Australia. He was also an expert navigator. This guy spent 47 days in a longboat, travelled from Tahiti after the mutiny out to Timor, and he survived. His story was made so famous at the time, and when he got back to England, he said the story, and he was the darling of English society. There is contention about whether who was in the right. Was it him? Was it Captain Fletcher, the mutineer? We will never know. Cadman's Cottage is the oldest surviving building in Sydney. One of the ladies over there has dropped $20 into the harbour, and the Sydney taxi is trying to grab it now. Let's see if he gets it. Can he get it? Can he get it? Go on, yes. Right. He's got it. Fantastic. And we can confirm that she gave the $20 to the Sydney water taxi driver. Good on. These are the tiles that line, guess what? Dun 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 dun. Old walls and little nooks like this really capture my attention. I like just walking through little doorways and discovering little treasures like this. Right, we have to go up and go and find the bridge, which is somewhere around the back of the rocks. You can find these little places here that are the old structures, and you can go in and have. They've now just put in a table, a chair, you can sit around there, but you're actually sitting in history that's about 250 years old. Before you think that's just nothing, bear in mind for Australians, this is pretty old. I know you guys out there have a lot longer history. This is the Royal Yacht Squadron in Kirribilli. This is where I park my yacht